Well, hey, everybody, this is Kim Stevens, your community leader for the Women of the Channel Leadership Network. And I am excited to introduce to you Jennifer McDonald, who is from Fortinet. Jennifer, good morning.
Good morning, Kim. So good to be here.
I'm so glad that you are allowing me to interview you. And folks, just so you know, Jennifer is the Senior Director of Channel Marketing for Fortinet. And they are doing some really cool things around the community, and I'll brag about that later. But I really wanted to let you guys get to know her and what she has going on. So Jennifer, I always like to start with a couple of questions, easy breezy. All right. So
okay.
First, where did you grow up and where do you live now?
Okay. So I grew up in Massachusetts and about 45 minutes outside of Boston. And I still reside in Massachusetts, further west, about an hour and a half from Boston.
So you are a proper Red Sox fan?
I am a proper Red Sox, Patriots, New England sports. That's our thing.
Proper. I'm a Boston girl, so that's proper. Good. Glad to hear it. We can continue. How long have you been in the channel?
No, I was thinking about that. Probably like 15 to 20 years, in the channel, taking roles outside of the channel within IT, but within the IT channel for, probably about 20 years.
Okay, wonderful. And how about at Fortinet?
So I've been with Fortinet 8 years and started in the channel, took a few other roles, but I came back quickly to the channel within, a year or two.
So do you mean you were at Fortinet, left, and then came back?
Well, that we should chat about too, but
okay.
Within the channel at Fortinet. So I started my role, came over to Fortinet to be in the channel. Okay. And then took a service provider role. We were building another team up. And then within a couple of years came back to full-time, 100% the entire channel.
So tell me about that experience. Like what was the series of events and what led you to leave and then come back?
Yeah. I think it's a sort of a phenomenon, I think right now that, people, they talk about these boomerangs and people that leave the company and you think, maybe the grass is greener, maybe it's an opportunity, a skill set that you want. And for me, it was a little bit of a skill set, a global role that I thought would really help round out what I had done. And, it was with a network that I was super passionate about. And so I did leave for almost a year from Fortinet and then quickly realized, my passion was in the culture at Fortinet and my network there was where I wanted to be. So it was a quick departure and back, but I learned a lot. And that's what, we talked a little bit about, what you learn when you leave. And I was concerned coming back, would I be embraced? Would people say when I'm in a meeting, like, oh, if things don't go well, will Jen leave? And was it going to be too risky coming back for that reason? And so I asked the question before I accepted the role to come back to and said, how will I perceived with our leadership team and with our executives? Will I be thought of as the person that bailed? And my manager at the time said, she wasn't sure. She said, you know what, I'm going to go ask because I think that's important. And I was glad she did. And she came back and said that she had talked to a few different people, including our CEO, and that he was very supportive of people that leave and come back. And the reason was they gain a different perspective and they can hit the ground running, but with a different perspective. And that, he was welcomed. I was fortunate to be welcomed back. And I feel that when I'm, in meetings and I can tell like when people will say, oh, so-and-so is a boomerang. They're more than just me. And we're referenced as that, but it's a very accepted kind of culture.
The fact that you left and when you were coming back, you were self-aware to say, hey, how is this going to be perceived? And you checked first rather than always having to wonder.
Yeah, because I didn't want to be thought of as someone that gave up. I'm not someone that gives up. And I didn't want to be thought of as that. I also think from when I left, another thing about the culture is my manager at the time said, you can take it. I mean, I've had people leave and you're like, you take it personal. And she didn't. I remember she immediately went, oh, okay. If you don't like it, call me in 3 months, no questions asked, come back. And I thought, and I think I think for me, it was so supportive. It was amazing. It was like, I couldn't believe I had that opportunity or someone said that to me. but also that is a nice thing to say to someone, because it's hard to land when you're always halfway out, because you're thinking, well, I could really go back. For lots of reasons, when I left, it was phenomenal company. It wasn't for me at that moment. But it was it was a nice gesture that she did. And it was, again, just spoke so highly of the company, of Fortinet, for allowing people to do that.
Well, so Jen, let me ask you this, because the fact that she responded that way, and you wanted to come back, made it an option, but also you saw a character of her that was very, that was a great character, like where she said, come back. I don't know about you, but in a situation where I had resigned, I saw a part of the then manager that I hadn't seen that was quite negative, where they took it so personally, made it known to me that they were taking it personally, called me like a week later, berated me. And I'm like, gosh, even if I wanted to come back, I so would never come back.
And that, I feel like that's the norm. I feel like that's the norm. And I've experienced that before too, where it takes a little while. And I feel like I've done that. Like you just, it's hard to me in the moment when someone says it and you're like, it's all because of me, and it's nothing to do with them. And so that is the norm. And that's, I think, how people respond. It does take a special person to be above it and realize it's just where they are at that moment, and they need to go try something different that they think they want. And if they realize it's not, it's, you're still the same employee. You're still going to be able to do the same thing. And even better, and just as my CEO said, you just have a better perspective. You left. I happened to go to a partner and got a different angle on a lot of things and brought that knowledge back here.
Now that you're in that leadership position, are there things that you've learned, maybe even from previous managers, like the woman we just spoke about, or are there some best practices that you try to incorporate into your process or way of managing people?
Having mentors and learning from people within the industry is great. I think outside, like going for a walk with someone outside, my neighbor, we talk about things and she'll tell me she's in the healthcare industry and she'll tell me things that she does. She have one neighbor that's in HR. Like I love learning from other people too, outside of the industry, and having those mentors. So definitely learn from what other people have said, and then what I've experienced. I think the thing that I realized when I thought, oh, I really like this, being a leader and having a team and managing, I think it was when I liked helping. I like helping people. I like finding, what are you good at? What's your growth goals? Trying to help people get to where they want to be. And when I realized that's what I liked, that's when it kind of hit, and I was like, okay, this evolution is good. I like this evolution. I like being in this role. But I think it's about people. That's what I think. I've always enjoyed being with people and connecting with people, and that's what I most like about what I do.
You've been in the channel for a while. Have you ever experienced any sort of bias? And if so, how did you work through that?
I think not trying to take it personal right away, and not let it get off your track. Don't get off your track because of how someone else is perceiving, or what the category that you're being put in, or whatever. It is that bias. So I think one is, I've always tried to take their perspective for a moment. Okay, maybe they feel this way about me as a woman, or they may feel this way about, whatever maybe there's a bigger reason for this. And so I try not to take offense, or I don't let it get off my track. And then a lot of things, I just like to take it as a challenge. Okay, so that's what they think of me. Let's see what happens. And I try to take it as a challenge and show them differently, or show them differently, and how, because when the one thing I haven't done or one thing I try not to do is be offended and kind of fight fire with fire. I always tell my kids, don't fight fire with fire. It just doesn't work it doesn't work. So that's how, in those moments where you know that you're being judged in a way, or there's a bias here, that's how I try to manage through it.
Last week, we had our West Coast Summit, and I had the honor of leading a panel that I call Taking a Leap of Faith. And it's about moments in our journey where we literally have to step out and not know. I called it the Indiana Jones moment, where you're kind of stepping out onto what is an invisible bridge, right? You don't really know what's going to happen, but you have to have faith that it's going to work out. And so I'm just curious if during your journey, you've taken a leap of faith, and maybe any lessons that you learned as a result of that.
Yeah. So I think of two areas, or two focus areas with, taking that leap. Perspective and is the first thing. And I feel like that as we've gone through the last couple of years, and things that have happened to people that are terrible, and health reasons, always I would say to people I work with, my family, like, perspective here. We've got to keep perspective as to this moment, this whatever. And I feel like the taking a leap of faith, I always try to keep that perspective. Like, okay, if this doesn't work out, what's the worst thing? Like, is it really that bad? And that's where I just try to keep the perspective. That thing. The other thing of taking a leap of faith, sweaty palms makes a good performance. Fear is a great thing. Like, like when you show up and you're nervous and taking a leap, you're going to have the fear, and that's okay. Just go with it. Sweaty palms make a good performance, and keep the perspective. And, good things happen when you take risk. And, so that's what I think of when I think of take a leap of faith.
To this day, every time I do a podcast or do a webcast or am presenting, I get those sweaty palms, right? I get so nervous.
Yeah.
But then there's a part of me that is like, that's just me. That's just how but it doesn't debilitate me. I think fear is a good thing as long as it doesn't debilitate you, right?
Right.
But I think it keeps you fresh and on your toes. And to me, if nothing else, it shows that you care.
I had a phenomenal, like you said, sports is passion of mine. I played college softball. I can remember my coach saying, if you got up to bat and you weren't nervous, it's not going to be a good at bat. You have to get up there. That sweaty palms is the energy, the juice that you need to perform at that moment. And same when you get on stage, like, you got to have the sweaty palms. That's energy. You just got to use the energy and not let it debilitate you. You just have to use it in a way and have the perspective, like, worst case, it's all going to work out. So
I so appreciate you allowing me to just interview you. And every time I speak to you, it's just a joy. And
Kim,
thank you.
Thank you. This was great. Thanks, Kim.
Oh, you're so welcome. And you guys, when you take a listen to this, just give Jennifer a shout out. Let her know that you appreciate what she has shared, and don't let the sweaty palms scare you. That's a good thing. It's a good thing. All right. And we will see you guys on the next WOW session. You guys take care.